keep your ears open. See if you can pick up on the subtext. What's this poem about? The poem is called Trying to Control the World Again. Planning, preparing, posturing, proselytizing, predicting, preaching, prophesying, panicking. Yeah.
Did you have profiting? Profiteering?
She's no RFK Jr.
Yeah, profiteering, yeah. Yeah.
Welcome in to all the members present and worldwide. I hereby call this meeting of the Piece of Shit Book Club to order. I'm your esteemed chairperson, Julian Penwell. And it's my pleasure to introduce this week's lot of library-loving lads. Where my lads at? How you doing, boys?
Fantastic.
Hello.
Julian, nice to meet you for the first time.
Such a pleasure to see all your beaming faces again. We're joined by Chip Wilson, Jane Lynch, and Dr. Bo Dashington, back for his record-breaking 6th appearance on the show now, Dr. Dashington.
Yeah, it's great. I'd say it's great to see you again, Julian, but have you ever been on this podcast before? Isn't this your first time? So thank you for welcoming me.
Long time, first time for me. Well, it's my distinct pleasure, Dr. Dashington, to welcome you to a very, very special episode of the Piece of Shit Book Club podcast, because this week we're celebrating women in literature. Longtime listeners will know that this is very much a pro-woman podcast. We're probably the top all-male feminist book club podcast on the internet. Safe to say, speaking for all of the panelists, love gender equity. We're often the first to celebrate important equity milestones. Thinking of a couple of years ago when Saudi Arabia started letting all the ladies drive, we were the first to say, hats off to you, MBS. You done it again.
You've done it again, Mohammed bin Salman. What was the first thing he did, Julian, that you were very happy about?
I mean, the list is so long, who could say? It's really, the guy's been hitting home run after home run. I'd say ever since Khashoggi, the guy's been on a winning streak. I mean, as book lovers, we can't celebrate the brutal state-backed murder of a journalist and writer, but everything since then has been on the up and up as far as I'm concerned. Anyways, we're getting off track here. The reason... Yeah. So because this is a very special PSBC podcast episode celebrating women in literature, it's Ladies' Night, I'm very excited to announce that we are doing our first female author on our feature segment. We'll dig into love, loss, and liberation in Elizabeth Gilbert's new memoir, All the Way to the River. You know her from the seminal classic, Eat, Pray, Love. This new book covers the horrible addiction and death of her longtime female lover. But before we get into our feature segment, the book report. The book report segment is where we dig into new and upcoming releases and anything else of interest that we might be reading. It's sort of the new business section of this podcast. And actually, for the first piece of new business, I was listening back to old episodes, previous episodes of this podcast. They're great. I think, though, we could use with a little bit of additional structure. So I'm proposing that we start to follow Robert's rules a little bit more closely and bring a little bit of additional order to the meetings.
Who's Robert?
So, do you know Robert's rules? I'm the chairperson. No.
Would you like to tell us, or is it a closely guarded secret?
Do you guys literally don't know Robert's rules? Like if you're holding a meeting, it's
I know
book. Yeah. If
no, I'm sorry.
It's a way of doing business, not really a way of doing entertainment. So go on.
Well, it's a
I don't know.
club.
I'm a blue collar guy. I don't know about this type of stuff. So tell us how life is in the boardroom, Mr. CEO.
Yeah, I don't host meetings.
We'll just cut this whole bit out and post. This is.
Go on, Julian.
I mean, I was going to say we're all in favor, but I guess if we're not all in favor, then the motion doesn't pass. And
I mean, those are Robert's rules.
I'm in favor of more structure. I'm down with that.
Okay. Like if you want to talk and just like point of order and, we vote on things and we make it a democracy and it just, it makes the show run smoother. It might not be as entertaining as Chip points out, but God damn it if we won't get stuff done at least. Any other new business you guys want to cover? Anything you're reading that's particularly shitty that you want to highlight?
Point of order. Am I meant to say that every time?
The chair recognizes Chip Wilson.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be great for the podcast. I could tell.
Every time I speak.
Go ahead, please.
That's all I had. It's just a stupid bit. I'll go into something nice I read just to kick it off a little.
Let's not make a habit of it.
Okay. Roadside Picnic I quite enjoyed. Kind of like the OG of the sci-fi genre, subgenre, where there's like a zone of alien contact and people are kind of going in and out of it.
Is it written by a woman?
No, it's written by two Russian men, which is pretty far from a woman.
Doesn't really fit the format of this episode, but okay.
Doesn't. But it's got picnic in the title, you know. If you read Annihilation or the Southern Reach trilogy that it was part of or watched the film, the sort of sci-fi trope that follows was kind of set up by Roadside Picnic. It's like a 70s Soviet sci-fi. Short read, very nice.
Nice. All right. I'll be running out and picking that up. Bo, Jane?
Yeah, actually, I'd be keen for a short read. I'm actually I don't read shitty books other than the ones I'm kind of mandated to be a part of this club. So the only other stuff I've got is like a good book or a good series of books that I'm just finishing. Biographies by a guy called Ian Kershaw, this British academic historian.
Also sounds like a man.
He is a man, but they're biographies of this Austrian fella you might have heard of called Adolf Hitler, and there's two of them that he wrote. It's a series. The first is called Nemesis up until 1936, and the second is from 36 until 1945, when of course Hitler died. Extraordinarily well written, well researched. But like each book is, and I'm kind of happy because I'm coming to the end of it, even though they're really good books, because each one is like 1,000 pages, and that's like 2,000 pages of Hitler it's a lot of Hitler, even though they are really well written. You ever read
the Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, and you're like, you start getting into it, you're like, this is fucking great. And they're like going through like the 30s and whatever. And it's like, you're on page like 600 by the time they invade Poland. And you're like, good God, this is just, might be too much Hitler.
Bo, there's no third book covering the Argentinian years? Nice, a nice breezy epilogue.
There's not.
Okay.
Jane, I want to ask you what you're reading, because I think usually there's nothing.
I haven't been reading anything since my last assignment there, but I have been keeping on. You posted about it, and I was looking at it beforehand as well. Was Olivia Nuzzi's memoir, American Canto, which is it looks to be a very shitty book about her relationship with RFK Jr. But
that's a fantastic segue, actually. Yeah. So to celebrate our love of women, we've got a trio of new books from female writers. We just wanted to quickly profile before we jump into our feature segment. You hit the first one already. So Olivia Nuzzi's memoir, American Canto, getting a lot of buzz. For those of you not aware, she is a prominent American political reporter. During the last election, presidential election in the U.S., she was assigned to cover legendary oddball and seed oil alarmist RFK Jr., and she ends up having an affair with him. She's subsequently been fired from New York Magazine, and actually just this week, she was fired from Vanity Fair as well. Everybody's crying journalistic malpractice. I don't think that we're too concerned about that on this show. Really, it's of interest because of her affair with RFK, and her boyfriend at the time has been posting all sorts of salacious details about this alleged affair, including some poetry from RFK. I've got a couple of lines here. He's quite the wordsmith. I'll share with you. This is RFK to Nuzzi. Quote, "Open your mouth, awaiting my harvest. I mean to squeeze your cheeks to force open your mouth. I'll hold your nose as you look up at me to encourage you to swallow. Don't spill a drop." Well, The Guardian calls it pretentious and insufferable filler.
Another reason, just like RFK, he's not a retainer.
I thought there was stuff going around that he did retain, but yeah, the poetry would seem to contradict that. Anyways, yeah, American Canto by Olivia Nuzzi. #1 new release in journalist biographies, released December 2nd, 2152 on Amazon in hardcover. The second female book that we're highlighting this week, Make Him a Sandwich: Why Real Women Don't Need Fake Feminism by Candace Owens. #1 bestseller in radical political thought, released November 15th, 2794 on Amazon. From the book cover, quote, "Are you happier today than your grandmother was? Do you feel liberated and fulfilled? Or do you feel pressured, exhausted, and endlessly compared to men you never wanted to compete with in the first place? Make Him a Sandwich" is a bold invitation to women everywhere to rethink what it means to be a woman in the modern world. And personally, I love Candace Owens. I mean, I got a soft spot for her. She's full of shit and she's a loon, but she makes entertaining content. She recently released a 9-part transvestigation into Macron's wife, alleging that she is actually a man or was born a man. And in response, Macron's wife sued her, and that case is pending right now. She's just a lot of fun.
Good time.
The last female writer I wanted to highlight today for our Ladies of Literature series, Accidental Christmas Daddy by Miyamara. A little bit of a holiday book. So from the cover, quote, I hooked up with Santa, okay, not the real one, but a sexy older man in a tailored Santa suit at a Christmas charity party. 5 years later, I'm a single mom with a sick little boy just praying for a holiday miracle. And my son whispers, quote, all I want for Christmas is a dad. So that's Accidental Christmas Daddy, $14.99 on paperback. #1 new release in holiday fiction. And that's out now if you want to get that.
In the realm of like smut and Harlequin romances and stuff, there's a constant Christmas theme. There are so many that are like, because they kind of, there's all these crossovers. There's like, the Billionaire, there's the Cowboy series, and then there's holiday ones. So sometimes you get, My Christmas Billionaire Cowboy, Christmas with the Cowboy, Christmas with the Billionaire. So it's good to see that they're continuing to kind of push, but stay true to the genre.
This is part of an ongoing series. I don't have it right in front of me. I think it was called like Daddy Doctor, something along those lines. So it's basically fuckable doctors. This one here. So the guy in the Santa suit was the doctor, and then it turns out 5 years later she gets treated by this doctor, and she instantly recognizes him as the absentee father of her illegitimate child. So
my grandmother used to just read those front to back all day, like
how
throughout
horny
all
are
of
those?
retirement.
Like the mainstream ones.
They're pretty
horny.
horny. They're horny.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Yeah, so it always reminds me of my grandmother just getting horny all day from
Old Nan getting
age
all horned up on the Harlequins.
Nan gets the horn.
From 65 to 85. Good for her.
Respect.
Did she have a preference? Doctors or billionaires or
I didn't ask her
pirates
too
at
much
Christmas?
about it.
White guys, I would imagine.
Yeah, she was very racist as well, for sure.
All right, well, that was the book report. We'll now move on to our feature segment, All the Way to the River by Elizabeth Gilbert. I'll turn it over to my esteemed book club member, Bo Dashington. The chair recognizes Dr. Bo Dashington. I cede my time to you.
Thank you. We're taking a look at All the Way to the River, which, many people may know, some may not, is essentially a sequel, right? It's a sequel or not just a sequel, but it's a book in a series. The first of which was Eat, Pray, Love. And I think like what we're not here to do is relitigate a popular piece of women's literature from 20 years ago and pick it apart. But I kind of also think it's kind of, you need to probably know about that book in order to kind of understand the author and kind of how she actually is a grifter.
As someone that has never read or seen the original or knows anything about the author, I would appreciate as much context as you can give.
Well, I'm glad that warms my heart, Jane. It makes me feel like I didn't waste my fucking time because I read Eat, Pray, Love as well. But it's the weird thing about both these books is neither are complete total pieces of shit, right? Like she can write, and the question is more about like what she's doing, what she says, and how she's profiting from it. Like Eat, Pray, Love, for people who don't know, was written 20 years ago, sold 30 million copies, which is insane. She got a $200,000 advance for Eat, Pray, Love. And that's before she went on her, her travels, which were the basis of the book. And that's important to know, I think, because she would have gotten a much bigger advance for this book now that this recent book. But for people who don't know the book, Eat, Pray, Love, it's kind of 400 pages. It's tough to get through. I mean, All the Way to the River is another 400 pages. It's almost 1,000 pages, which is roughly the same length of one of the Hitler books. If you think, should I read one of the Hitler books or should I read these two? I'd vote for the Hitler book.
Definitely Hitler.
Personally.
This is one of those cases where Hitler comes out on top.
Yeah, one of the rare cases. But the basic conceit of the book is Eat, Pray, Love is she is married to a guy for 10 years. It falls apart into a really messy divorce. But that's not part of the book, and she explicitly says, I'm not even going to talk about that. Because right after the divorce, she has a rebound for a short period of time. And that guy leaves her relatively quickly, it seems. And then she's heartbroken by the rebound, which is really odd to start off with. Like, generally a marriage of 10 years is going to have more impact on you than a fling, which makes you think that there was like an NDA in the divorce agreements that she couldn't write about it. But then to get over this, she's going to go off on these, she's going to travel all over the world. And she's going to go to Italy to eat.
The worst place.
She's going to go to India to pray. And she's going to go to Bali to fall in love. So the first part is in Italy. It's thoroughly uninteresting. The new amazing cuisines that she tries while there are, and I've got the list of all the things she mentions: gelato, pizza, and pasta carbonara.
Fairness though, pizza wasn't that popular 20 years ago.
And the book is like, it basically, her only friend, and she admits that she's making up people's names, but her only friend is a guy she hires to teach her Italian. And this is a theme throughout the book. Her only friends are people that she's paying. And she calls him Luca Spaghetti. Great. Then she goes to India. She stays at an ashram. She says that it's an incredibly difficult to get to ashram, and it was very stressful. She didn't know if she was going to make it, but it's also right next to Mumbai. And you don't have to know much about India to know, like, Mumbai's a big city, and anything that's close to Mumbai is, you get in a taxi and you drive there. Like, it's not, you're not traversing the Andes or the Himalayas or whatever. In India, she doesn't make any friends apart from a guy from Texas, and he's her spiritual guide. Only has one conversation that's mentioned with an actual Indian person, and her conclusions are that Indians talk funny.
As opposed to Texans.
Yeah. And lastly, then she goes to Indonesia, to Bali specifically, to get deep and spiritual. And then we realize the true purpose of the story. She meets a Brazilian guy, falls in love. That's the end. That's it. Chip, I know you've read Eat, Pray, Love. I know it was a few years ago, but how do you feel about it? How does it sit in your memory?
I read it because I was traveling with some people, and a woman I was traveling with was reading it. And I was kind of waving it off, like, oh, it's like, just looks like kind of crap to me. And she was like, no, it's like really good, and kind of challenged me to read it. So I was like, sure, I'll read it so I can give it an honest evaluation. And like, it's fine. Like you said, she's a talented writer, right? And I would say that one, like, it moves despite the subject matter being very superficial. I have like kind of, I think, personal issues with the tone of it and the narrative, because it's like this, suburban white lady that's doing very basic tourist shit around the world as she's traveling. Very, very superficial interaction with the environment around her in those localities, that sort of thing. So it's just kind of like tiring, like, especially if like you've traveled a bit and you run into these people who are on these journeys of self-discovery that are very basic. You just kind of get tired of it,
India's packed with those.
The side of it where it's kind of like, I don't know, getting over a divorce and stuff or whatever. I thought it was like interesting enough. Like, it was okay, basically. But I think that, just to touch on that as well, Elizabeth Gilbert, like, in her background, she started as like an essayist, and kind of her whole thing was going and living some experiences and then writing about them, mostly with herself as a central character, this like kind of memoir format. And I couldn't figure out find this exactly, what her connection was, but she wrote some short stories about the Coyote Ugly bar, which I think it was her work that was originally made into the Coyote Ugly movie, but I'm not sure if it was unrelated.
Classic.
And so, like, throughout the 90s, that's how she rose before writing Eat, Pray, Love, was like these, I went and worked at this bar for a while, wrote about that experience. I went and worked at a ranch, wrote about the experience, or little short stories about different people that were staying at the ranch. So that's kind of her style. And then I found, as her career progresses, as we get into this book later, that I feel like the quality of that starts to degrade, the quality of her prose, as well as the, like, the genuine nature of her character's arc with them. It starts to get more forced. It starts to get more detached. And so I think Eat, Pray, Love was where you started to see that, where you're like, this lady seems like she's kind of like just completely in her own fucking world.
Kind of like a lady Mike Rowe. Dirty Jobs.
Yeah, like Mike Rowe. And as she got bigger. But yeah, Eat, Pray, Love, I mean, it's a cultural phenomenon, really. Like, it's huge. And it was like hugely impactful, I think, for a lot of especially female writers as well, in terms of like what they would write about and the craft and so on. So, like, you give it some credit there. But
for sure.
Made into a movie as well, played by
it was made in a movie.
Julia Roberts played the author. I don't know how. So I've never read the book. I saw the movie. A mutual friend of ours, I was hanging out with him, and we had rented a chalet in the Alps and no internet, but they had Eat, Pray, Love on DVD. And in that country, in France, you can just buy poppers over the counter at any tobacco store. So we had a bunch of poppers and we were hanging out and having some beers and put on Eat, Pray, Love. And so that's kind of that was my first exposure to the work.
Yeah, the movie is completely forgettable. Just following from like Chip's points about how shallow it is. It's like this book is fundamentally Eat, Pray, Love, but also the new one we're going to talk about is fundamentally about her. It's not about anything else. The knowledge about the places she goes is exactly the same. Her knowledge, but also ours as a reader, is exactly the same after having read the book as before. Her perceptions of people are all really lame stereotypes of what Indians are like, or Italians, or anyone else, and it's all like, yeah, I don't know how else to say it. It's like you don't need to learn anything, and you don't learn anything in the process. And I guess it's simultaneously easy to scoff at. It's not great, but it's sold millions of copies, and its core connection with people, especially of course with women readers and then writers, is how she's able to pitch herself as going through these things that everybody goes through. I went through these things just like you do, and I give too much of myself too, and I am always loving too hard too, and I get my heart broken too. And then that's really what the book's about. And then it ends in a kind of weird way, because it's just about essentially white lady privilege of you get your heart broken, so travel around the world spending tens of thousands of dollars and then just marry some Brazilian guy. And so it kind of is about a man in the end anyway, which is kind of odd. But that's Eat, Pray, Love. Yeah.
Just to add to that, like I read some reviews of the recent book. Obviously, most major publications did. Gia Tolentino in the New Yorker, like it's titled Elizabeth Gilbert's Latest Epiphanies, and the tagline is Eat, Pray, Love was a huge hit in part because readers imagined they could be like its author. The new book shows how dubious that notion was.
With that as sort of our context, that's who the author is. She's written a whole bunch of novels, or books, including some novels, in between Eat, Pray, Love and this. Her big book was one called Committed, where she talks about marriage and being married as someone who, wasn't sure about marriage, and let's look at marriage, and, is it feminist to be married, and all this kind of type of stuff.
That one's right before her divorce, too.
That's when she divorces the guy she meets in Eat, Pray, Love. She marries him, I think, isn't it? Yeah, she marries the Brazilian guy. So we have this book then, this new book, All the Way to the River. And I thought maybe what we'd do to make sense of this is let's just talk through the plot. For those of you who've made the mistake of reading it will already know it. Those of you who haven't will be surprised at certain points, and we can talk about that. Just to do a quick check-in. Julian and Chip, you both tried to force your way through it. Is that right?
Yeah, I read the whole thing.
I listened to almost the entire book on tape. I couldn't make it right to the end. It's a 10.5-hour book on tape, and I made it about 10 hours and 10 minutes in. No word of a lie. And I just couldn't force myself to listen to the last 20 minutes of the book. But yeah, I know what happened.
You missed nothing.
Yeah, I know. Well, because the last 20% of the book, there was nothing.
You missed something by reading the audiobook, because you missed that every 4 or 5 pages, there's a bunch of profoundly shitty doodles and drawings that she did on her, just on a scrap of paper. And then
I'm looking at the ebook right now, and they're truly juvenile. I mean,
they're what you would do during a meeting, during one of your fancy Robert's Rules meetings.
Exactly.
And the drawings, the doodles throughout it, as well as her poems, make it just feel like a 13-year-old's diary at times. Yeah. And it's so strange. Yeah. I don't it's probably deliberate in some way, but it does not land.
And that's the other thing. Every few pages there's a drawing and there's a poem. And I thought I'd just read one quickly, just so that those of you who haven't suffered through this book can see what these poems are like. This is a poem. See if you can keep your ears open. See if you can pick up on the subtext. What's this poem about? The poem is called Trying to Control the World Again. And here's the poem. Planning, preparing, posturing, proselytizing, predicting, preaching, prophesying, panicking.
Does she have profiting? Profiteering?
She's no RFK Jr.
Yeah, profiteering, yeah. So on the face of it, this book is about her relationship with a woman called Rhea, who was a friend for a long time, but then they pursued a romantic relationship. And it tells you right from the beginning, this isn't a spoiler alert, you know that Rhea dies. Rhea dies during the book, and she dies, which is very sad. It's a true story. She died from a sudden illness,
liver and pancreatic cancer.
Yeah, so that part's sad, but it's almost undermined by the opening of the book. It's one of, if not the worst openings and most painful and cringeworthy openers to a book I've ever read. The opening of the book is a letter from the woman who died to the author, Elizabeth Gilbert, basically giving her permission and encouraging her to write a book about everything that happened, and saying, don't worry if you embarrass me. Don't worry about my dignity. Don't worry about making me look bad. Don't worry about profiting from this. And
but it's not a letter.
This is a quote. No, it's a letter. It's a letter. Yeah, sorry. It's a letter from... She writes it as, Rhea's spirit came to me and took control of the pen that moved across the page. And she sent me this message saying, you have to do this. You have to write this book and sell it for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
But she also seems to mean literally the spirit. She believes the spirit appears to her.
It doesn't seem like
watching her with Oprah, and she talks about this, and she compares it to, because she also hears the voice of God in her head, and she says the voice of Rhea and the voice of God are very similar. And so, this letter that you're describing came to her in a vision after Rhea had died. As you say, it's like, this is the permission structure to expose all of Rhea's most intimate details, the most horrific moments, the lowest moments of her life, and to put it all into a book and package it and sell it. And I had to go back. So when I was reading this, I had sort of forgotten that. I thought, oh yeah, I'm sure Rhea gave her permission. Rhea seems, she's got this sort of rebel, chill, cool dude attitude. And she had just sort of explicitly given her permission to share all of these really, really intimate details with the world. But going back, no, this is something that the author claims came to her in some kind of post-death visitation.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And it's both, I don't know, strange to write about the dead and use them for your own, put words in their mouth, basically, and use it for your own purposes in any case. But also in a narrative sense, if you're writing something that's supposed to be raw and unfiltered about what you did wrong in a situation and whatever growth you may have had from it, if you start it with this preamble of the ghost of the person that you may be wronged in some ways, saying, hey, everything you did was fine, and you're so beautiful, and you're the most talented person that's ever existed, and I love you so much. You're such a fucking rock star. It completely undercuts anything that would be authentic about the following story. It's it just kills me, really.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way to put it. And speaking of undercutting the story, maybe we should start. I mean, the story it's razor thin. I mean, some big things happen, but the story itself it's 400 or 500 pages of her talking about herself mainly. But the core of the story, or at least the frame of the story, is, Rhea's her friend. Rhea's a lesbian, has been out and open for a long time. She's a hairdresser, I think. Also connected to that thing that her friends and people connected to her are often people she's paying. Rhea's a recovering addict. A recovering drug addict, and not just a recovering from being a light social user of drugs, but from being from a really, really difficult addiction, a real struggle with drugs. But at this point, they decide that they're falling in love, and so they start to. Rhea relapses and just starts doing loads of drugs, and they do drugs together, and it's great. They're having a blast. No reflections from the author about whether or not doing loads of drugs with a recovering addict is a great idea or not, or no reflection of culpability. She's open about the fact that Elizabeth Gilbert paid for everything. She's the one with the big bucks, and she likes to mention that constantly about her, quote, big fat checks that she's constantly getting. So it's obvious that she doesn't say this, but yeah, she was probably the one buying the drugs. Almost certainly, right? She bought everything else, the apartment they lived in, etc., the car. She bought her a car one day, Rhea, just because she felt like it. Rhea gets diagnosed with cancer, which is, of course, tragic. But they start doing drugs even more now that she's on, a limited timeline. And, Rhea's kind of stoic about her death, and she's going to face it standing up, and she's going to go out, like a flame. And there's a kind of almost maybe potentially unintentionally funny bit where she talks about Elizabeth describes it when Rhea got her diagnosis and learned she had a matter of months to live. She kind of celebrated certain things, like she didn't have to worry about going to the gym anymore. She didn't have to worry about quitting smoking or watching weight. And the only thing she was sad about is that she was going to miss the last season of Game of Thrones. Yeah, maybe you're fine missing that one.
She dodged a bullet there. That's awesome.
Yeah, Rhea's a lucky one. Am I right, fellas? But after she gets this, there's this really telling part where after they get the diagnosis, months to live, Elizabeth breaks down and she starts writing about like how horrible it's going to be. And this is now quote, like I'm reading. It's like, I saw Rhea dying. I saw her lying in a hospital bed and taking her last breath with me sitting beside her, holding her hand. I saw her disappearing from this world without my ever having told her what she was to me or how much I loved her. I saw myself going to her funeral. I heard people at her funeral saying, I'm so sorry your friend died. It's all me. There's no I thought reflecting about the intense amount of pain and fear that she's going to go through.
Yeah.
No empathy, no feeling that suffering. It's all, what am I going to do? Imagine me at the funeral.
Yeah. And there's parts in it where, and I question to what degree she gives an authentic representation of Rhea as well, because she speaks like a cartoon, 80s rock star.
Rhea does.
I haven't read her book, her own book, but it may be totally her style, but it's the way she speaks also centers around Gilbert throughout it. And there's one point early on, I think, I can't remember where this is from, but it stuck out to me where it's her talking and she's like, this was God's challenge. His challenge for me was to die and for you to live. And it's this doesn't seem really like equal challenges.
Yeah, someone got the short end of the stick on that one.
I'd say so.
Yeah, Rhea comes off as a very thin character. You shouldn't speak ill of the dead, but she does seem like the kind of person that if you met her, you would find her grating and obnoxious. At the same time, it's hard to believe a lot of the anecdotes that Elizabeth says about Rhea. It's hard to believe that they're true. This is later in the book, so we're jumping ahead a bit, but she gives this story about a trip to Australia. And she gives this anecdote to illustrate how Rhea is such a tough badass. She says, quote, I once witnessed on a trip to Australia, Rhea taking a swing at a full-grown kangaroo in a petting zoo because it had grabbed her purse. Back off, motherfucker. She had barked at the animal, and the kangaroo, visibly impressed, had indeed backed off with a look that seemed to say, game recognized game. It's peel away the layers. It's it's a lady trying to assault animals at a petting zoo.
Yeah, trying to punch a kangaroo at
Which
a
is
petting
funny
zoo.
if you're like a 1920s, fat boxer, then great. Go ahead and punch kangaroos. Otherwise, it's a little bit out of line.
Yeah, all the stories are like that. They make Rhea sound awful. They don't make her sound like I think the goal is to make her sound like a punk badass who doesn't take no shit from nobody. But she sounds awful.
There's another story about her trying to relate to a bunch of people with anecdotes about smoking crack. It's you guys, and they're in the back of a limo, and it's sort of like Elizabeth Gilbert's nice friend. She's like, you guys have never smoked crack? You don't smoke crack? It's like, what?
Yeah.
There's no way somebody is that socially clueless. You're only doing that to get a rise and for shock value.
I think it comes off as so cartoonish to me, and it's hard to believe that it's a full representation of Rhea as a person. I mean, maybe so, but in the story, I think it's more so putting her as a foil to Elizabeth herself. And her whole thing is she calls herself hey, I'm just the nice lady that wrote Eat, Pray, Love. Right. What the heck am I doing falling into all this despair? And so I think she's trying to emphasize that in a clumsy kind of way.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. But anytime there's one of these weird moments happens, especially that when the limo and Rhea mentions smoking crack, and it's just that feeling in the back of your throat when you smoke crack. You guys know what that's, right? And it's not just that it doesn't come across as socially unaware, but according to Elizabeth Gilbert's description of it, everyone's just enamored and so impressed.
they
and they're
love
just
it.
like, wow. Like, this woman, Rhea, is amazing. I mean, that's not the impression you get when you talk about smoking crack. Like, I'm sorry. But, like, everyone stood up and clapped. Like, no, they didn't. No, they did not.
Just
Well, I think
blowing the squares' minds.
We should acknowledge that Julian dropped a casual anecdote about doing poppers earlier in the podcast as well. So,
It's fully legal, though. I mean, and we were just hanging out. Like, I think that's what they do in France. They do poppers.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to bang each other in the butt. Like, you can just do it
And
recreationally.
in fairness to Julian, he mentioned, like, that was a story about them kind of hiding in some French chalet. He wasn't talking about, like, mentioning his popper stories at one of his, Robert's Rules meetings, and then, like, everyone stands up and claps because they're so impressed with him.
Yeah, champagne at the board meetings, poppers at the ski lodge, right?
The story goes on. I mean, not really. There isn't really much story, but the story goes on a bit. Basically, they're doing loads of drugs together. Almost certainly Elizabeth, it seems, is paying for them because Ray doesn't have a job or money.
She's explicit about it.
Yeah.
Like, at
Rhea
least that
starts,
first bit of cocaine, she explicitly pays for it.
No, I missed that, but there you go. But Rhea starts having, she starts having too many good times, and suddenly the times aren't so good anymore because she's basically just, she's a recovering addict who's now just in full blown addiction to coke, but also to, like, they mention, what do they mention? Xanax, Adderall, OxyContin,
fentanyl,
also hallucinogens, marijuana, alcohol, and
smokes.
Elizabeth smokes, darts. Elizabeth isn't having a good time anymore. And so she basically draws the line and says, that's it, get out, cutting you off, find a new place to live, find a new sugar mama.
Wait. She kicks out her girlfriend that she's been providing drugs for, who is diagnosed with cancer and has 6 months left to live?
Yes, except at this point it's less than 6 months. It's several months.
Couple months. I will say.
Oh no! Wait, I fucked up. We missed an important plot point. But sorry, Julian, go ahead.
That scene that you described there, that actually evoked genuine emotion in me, and because this is a Ladies of Literature episode, I'm not scared to admit it. That we spoke before about her not being a terrible writer, and that there's actually, there's little bits of merit here and there. That scene, I welled up a little bit in my throat where she's saying goodbye to her lover because her lover has become such a disgraceful mess and impossible to be with, and just this, like, villainous coke monster. So she goes to the apartment one last time that she's renting for her, and she knows that she's terminal. She says, this is probably the last time I'll ever see you. Goodbye. And I thought that was touching. I just wanted to add that as an aside. If we're gonna shit on books, we also have to recognize when there's bits and pieces in there that have some merit. So that was it. Back to you, Dr. Dashington. I cede the floor.
Thank you. I receive the floor. I don't know what to do with the floor. I receive the floor. I stand on the floor.
Plug your nose and receive the floor.
Sorry?
Sorry, that was part of RFK's poem. I think you never mind. It's talking about plugging the lady's nose while he busts a nut or something like that. But anyway, sorry. That was...
He was holding her nose while he was plugging
Robert's
her,
rules
is what I think.
again.
That's what was going on. Those are Robert's rules, yeah. RFK's rules.
And the motion carries. So anyways, we missed a crucial plot point.
It's not actually very interesting in the book. In fact, it's so dull that I actually had one of those, when you're, like, kind of turning the pages because you're so fucking bored that you miss something and then you realize you don't know what's going on. You have to go back and reread it, which is the worst when you're reading a book you hate. Before Elizabeth kicks out Rhea, things are getting, and this is something that was basically the main point in every headline and every review of the book. Things have gotten so bad that Elizabeth decides she's going to murder Rhea. And not, as Elizabeth says, not put her out of her misery, not do her a favor, but she's so fucking such a nightmare to be around that Elizabeth is going to switch out her sleeping meds with her morphine, I think, and like carve off the little symbol on it so she gets confused, so that Rhea will die because she's so sick of her. And she takes the medication and she's going to prepare it, and she comes to bring it back, and Rhea just immediately goes, nope, I know what you're doing. You think you can, you really think you can kill me? Well, you can't. And in that moment, Elizabeth is like, wow, I can't believe that she knew what I was going to do. And so she gives up on her plan.
You done busted, boy.
And God speaks to Elizabeth at that point. She hears the voice of God clearly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this obviously gets lots of attention in the press. Like, oh, and it's a big selling point of the book. She plotted to murder her lover. How true it is.
She did more than plan then if she was like there with the tools to carry it out.
Yeah, but here's the thing. She gives up the plan so easily to make me suspect that there was never any plan at all. Like
I agree.
If you are adamant about the fact that you're planning to murder somebody and you're going through with it, and this is not some literary device, this is not some passing fancy, this is not some just fantasy, you're not going to give it up when some coke-addled maniac mutters something about, I'm on to you. You're like, shit, the gig is up. If you read the quote of what Rhea allegedly said that caused Elizabeth to abandon the plot, it's ambiguous. There's nothing in there that explicitly says that Rhea knew what was going on. It was just how it was interpreted. And as Chip says, what then caused God to pop into her head and start this monologue about how if you're thinking about killing some crazy drug addict in your house, maybe you're the one that needs a hug.
And these things are like this, like you said, this got a lot of press. It's like salacious. It's like, oh, if this is like brutally honest, I'm a piece of shit kind of memoir. And it's like, okay, it's interesting enough. There's other things earlier before the split and so on that I think are kind of interesting in terms of what information is absent. So Rhea is originally supposed to live, I think, like 6 months or something. Foregoes chemo. Elizabeth, who has a history of getting book deals, says we're going to go on this bucket list excursion together, doing a whole lot of drugs and partying. It's going to be my greatest story. They're partying for a bunch of months. And then at some point, Rhea starts doing chemo. And it's like, it's not really detailed by Gilbert in this, but it's like someone else in her family, her other network, kind of convinced her to do chemo. And it ends up extending her life. But it's very, very kind of like yada-yada'd over in the story. And so I think there's like an underwritten aspect of the whole thing in terms of Gilbert's sort of isolating this woman and maybe any conflict she may have with the woman's extended network as well. But point being, by the time they get to the point of this big split, Rhea has lived like 6 months longer than they had expected. So, Gilbert talks about that, but like, she's basically gone through this like sort of caregiver fatigue, which I imagine was not made easier by binging for 3 to 6 months at that point. But yeah, it's like quite a bit longer than she thought she was getting in. She bit off more than she could chew, basically, right? She thought she was going to be going on this like 6 month journey with this woman, and it's like actually cancer is a very unglamorous way to pass, and a very prolonged and difficult process. So, and yeah, it happens to last a long time, and people can hold on for a long time with just like a shred of life left in them, right?
Well, something about, and perhaps you're going to get to this, Bo, but something about that caregiver fatigue is Elizabeth's self-professed codependency. And I don't, if you're planning to chat, sort of about her mental issues a little bit more, I don't want to step on that. But a lot of the way that Elizabeth writes about herself, she pathologizes her own behavior and wraps it in a language of recovery and 12-step programs. And at the beginning of the book, she's using all of this sort of recovery language because she's a self-professed love and sex addict. She also calls herself, is it a financial addict as well? And says she has codependent behavior. But at that point, she doesn't know it. It's only after Rhea dies, really, that in terms of the narrative structure, that she starts attending these meetings and comes to understand that, wow, I'm an addict too. And she uses that along with that visit by Rhea's ghost as a way of saying, well, it's okay for me to share this horrible story of Rhea's addiction because actually I'm an addict as well. I've got love and sex addiction and I understand what it's like to be an addict. And yes, I'm sober, but she's not talking about drugs and alcohol. She's talking sober from love and sex addiction and financial addiction. And as far as I'm concerned, she may have some maladaptive qualities to her, but she calls it an illness, a disease, whatever. these aren't clinical diagnoses. There's no such thing as like a clinically recognized codependent behavior or love and sex addiction. And I think actually it trivializes what Ray is going through, an actual chemical addiction and clinical substance misuse disorder. And it just really, it does a disservice to people who have, I think, real addictions. But this whole book is just anyone who's ever written or read any type of quit lit before or has been to any sort of 12-step program, all of this is going to be very familiar. And to me, it's a total turnoff. I'm 5 months sober. My triggers are love songs. It's like an addict who has booze around the house. I have to delete all these love songs off my Spotify because, that's my drug. My drug is love and sex, and it gets me high, and you don't understand it. I love like nobody else loves. And it's just, as I said, it's just pathologizing all of her own behaviors. And by the end of it, you just want to toss her off a bridge.
And that's like the last 100 pages of the book.
Which is the worst part of the book.
Yeah. Following the plot from where we are, she throws out Rhea. Like we need to talk about everything that you've just said, but just getting to that point, just following the plot for dear I almost said dear readers who haven't read the book. Also dear leaders. A salute to Kim Jong-un.
Please. Always been a pro DP podcast.
She throws out Rhea, who then goes to one of her exes who helps her get clean before she dies by cutting her off financially and not letting her have drugs, alcohol, smokes, anything in the house. Cuts her off successfully from everything. Elizabeth reflects on this and goes, why couldn't it be me that saved her? I loved so much, with not a scrap or a shred of a hint of a reflection of culpability that, oh yeah, I was the one giving her all the substances. And then shortly after that, Rhea dies. That is probably the best part of the book because it is written emotionally well, that it wasn't a pleasant death. It was, painful and something happens in the plot. But it's important to mention, and the reason I wanted to jump in before kind of responding to all those great comments you made, Julian, about addiction, is Rhea dies, and there's still about 150 pages left in the book. And that 150 pages is all what you described.
2 hours on the audiobook.
All her talking and reflecting about herself and how the real problem is that she just loved too much. Not that she was giving loads of drugs to an addict, not that someone else suffered and died, but that love addiction, which, as you mentioned, is not recognized by the American Psychiatric Association. It is not in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's not a thing recognized in medicine. And that last part of the book is painful.
And she uses it to justify all of her behaviors, I think, is where you're going with this. It's like, well, yeah, I supplied her with drugs, but, it's because I have this codependency. And, I cheated on my husband, but, well, I've got love and sex addiction. And it's, it uses it as a crutch, this convenient excuse for all of her, anything in the book that might reflect poorly on her. It's all like, well, you can't blame me. This is, I'm dealing with serious issues over here. And it's really not, it's not convincing and it's not compelling reading. No.
And to give a taste, this is like, if I could read a quick passage that kind of reflects the point that you're making. About, she goes to all these 12 steps, listens to all sorts of other people's stories and their addictions to all sorts of other, often clinically recognized types of addiction. And she describes all those encounters this way. Like, I heard about sexualizing, about guilt, shame, fear, rage, and grief. I heard about rape, abuse, pregnancies, venereal diseases, pornography, prostitution, suicide, violence. I didn't hear a single thing in those meetings that I couldn't identify with on some level. In fact, to this day, I have still never heard anything in any 12-step meeting that shocks me. Whenever I hear people talking about their most self-destructive behaviors, I'm like, yeah, I've done that. Or, yeah, I would probably do that. No, you haven't, and no, you didn't. You didn't experience any of those things.
Yeah, there's the other part where she says, like, the first meeting, she's like, oh, man, it was kind of brutal because I heard all these people with sex addictions that did horrible shit I've never done. And then later
Yeah.
going like, yeah, but I could see myself doing that. And she has like I mean, her thing is like this. She has an essay from years prior that's like confessions of a seduction hitman or hitwoman or whatever. I can't remember what it's fucking called. But, you know, writing about her long history of seducing people and the thrill she gets of it and how much she loves going after men who are in relationships and, you know, kind of manipulating them into sleeping with her and stuff. And it's this like reflective thing, right? And then through this, she's moving into now she's like celibate. She's beyond this and all the recovery language you're talking about. But like, even if you see her in interviews now, she got her head shaved. She's like doing this guru thing. And who it really reminded me of is Roosh V, the pickup artist that we've covered many times in the past. Because Roosh V did this arc where it was like he's a pickup artist when in his younger days and wrote these books. Also wrote, you know, books about travel, just like Eat, Pray, Love.
One of the original Passport boys.
And well, she's a passport girl as far as I'm concerned. Like going to Bali to go to hook up with someone and stuff. Yeah, but anyways, like, and then he pivoted. Roosh V and many misogynistic grifters do the same pivot where when they're younger, it's this whole thing about like dominating women through seduction and things like that. And then later in life, they go like, oh, you need to find God. You need to be Christian and so on. And that guy's almost like Russell Brand is in some way that kind of vein. But so she's really doing like the same kind of thing where now it's like all about celibacy and being one with God.
Yeah, it's
I
that
wonder so a lot of her, like her, it seems like her narcissism and stuff like that, like she's very focused on herself this whole book and stuff like that. I wonder if that comes from just her or she's been doing this job for so long that her whole life she's been contextualizing things and how it's going to read. Like all of her experiences and all these things she's trying to do, it's always framed as, okay, how am I going to write about this?
Yes. Yeah. No, you're spot on. You're spot on. There, and you've just triggered a memory of like in the early parts of the book when Rhea gets her diagnosis, Elizabeth even says like she starts writing down everything that Rhea does and she starts recording everything and starts like keeping track of everything. Obviously, she's not a moron. She knows that she's going to end up writing a book about this and that book is going to get her hundreds of thousands of dollars and be a deep emotional, you know, blah blah blah, whatever. So how what's true and what's contrived is obviously hard to tell, but it's clear that a lot of it is contrived.
It's like she did it for the content kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like no different.
Yeah, it's like live streamers kind of thing. It's just like everything is just like, okay, how can I, or what's this gonna look like? Like,
yeah,
I gotta make sure that, you know, eyes are on me and it's gonna look good.
Some dumb fuck travel video that's like, I went to the most dangerous neighborhood in Brazil. This kind of shit. But also just to add on what you're saying, Jane, like there's one that's probably her approach to the craft as a writer, but she's a huge figure. Like she's not just any old writer. She's one of the most famous writers in the world. She has a huge presence and followers. She's done books on like, you know, the creative process and so on. So I think that probably amplifies her excesses, both in terms of what she's going to seek out to find a weird story, and then also the excesses in the craft. Because you get to a certain point where like no one's going to say no to anything you do, and that comes through to me a lot in this. Is that it's like everybody was probably scared to give her decent editing notes.
Yeah, or they also just know that it doesn't matter. The book doesn't need those editing notes. If she wants to put a doodle of a dandelion on every other page, fuck it, let her. It doesn't really matter. The book's going to probably sell a lot of copies.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a Oprah book club pick. It's a massive success. You look at her interview with Oprah online, millions and millions of views.
Yeah.
I think there's sort of, when it comes to criticism of the book and kind of related to what you guys are speaking of, I think there's kind of three ways to think about it. You know, one vein of criticism that I see a lot is this idea of cashing in on Ray's addiction and publicizing the worst moments of her life for commercial gain. The second is the specific actions of Elizabeth within the book. So like claiming she's going to kill Rhea or supplying Ray with drugs. And then the third criticism is just like the book's shit. Like the book's like, it's just kind of like self-indulgent and obnoxious. Out of the three, I take issue most with the third one. You know, I don't really think that her exploiting this story for her own gain. I actually don't really think that Rhea, I mean, I don't know Rhea, I don't know who she is, but if you read any of Rhea's book, so one of the stories that's included in All the Way to the River is she basically supports Rhea in writing a book so that she can spend more time with her and house her in this property she owns. And if you read Rhea's book, I mean, it's extremely revealing. It's very graphic, and there's not, just reading the initial forward to it, or the first chapter, you could tell that I don't think that Rhea would have a big problem with what Elizabeth has included in this book. So then, do you have problems with Elizabeth's actions in the book, claiming she was going to kill Rhea? Well, we've discussed that. I mean, we don't think that's a credible story. Supplying Rhea with drugs, I also don't have an issue with that. I mean, this person, they're an adult. They have agency. They can, sort of do what they want. And if they're dying of cancer, who really cares if they do a bunch of blow? So really, my main issue with the book is just that it's kind of shit.
It comes down to, like, are we critiquing the person or the work, right?
Yeah.
And, if it's a focus on the work, I agree with everything you're saying there. It comes down to me that the purpose of this is maybe more so her mythologizing her own transition into some kind of post-love guru. It just seems like it's like giving herself this origin story for a new character, because she became like a public figure with the success of her previous books. And she became already this like guru for middle-aged women who want to, if they're having a divorce, resetting their lives or whatever, or for younger women that have some aspiration. And like when I was reading other reviews, a lot like younger female authors talking about her being very inspirational to them. So she is like this thing. And so she has to like reinvent herself and her public image as well, and it seems to service that more than like a deeply honest reflection of what happened.
Yeah, and it's the one that my sort of closing thought, or like unwrapping about how I see the book, is like Eat, Pray, Love was written in such a way and became popular because everyone, or not, I shouldn't say everyone, but the people who loved it thought they could identify with her, and like, I go through this type of stuff too. I have no idea of who's going to read this book and think, oh, that's just like me, especially given that on every other page, there's some comment about how she buys a house sight unseen because she likes the look of it online, or she gives someone a new car, or these big fat checks keep coming, or this financial addiction, I've just got too much money. And it just like, that meme of Woody Harrelson crying and wiping his face with the money. Yeah. That's basically what my impression of this woman is that can she write and can she market and can she sell books? Yeah, clearly, really do that really well. But is she a person that should be emulated or seen as like, oh, I should be like that? Well, no. Because she even undermines all the previous life lessons that she supposedly has gained. Like at the end of Eat, Pray, Love. All of that's bullshit now, given on what she ended up doing and becoming. So it's like, what is the point of all of this anyway?
Yeah, and it's like this is like a tourist. Like same so as in Eat, Pray, Love, you feel like she's just you really feel that she's a tourist in all these places. In this, yeah, she was really close to what occurred. But if you're also talking about like a junkie living in your apartment, well, this is probably like her 5th or 6th property. Right? Like we know that she has immense resources. She could pull the parachute on what she was doing at any point in time. And
she
so
does.
Exactly. Yeah, she just disappears.
She moves out and leaves Rhea in the apartment.
Yeah, with like other people to look at. She like gathers other people to do an intervention, and then she pieces out and leaves them.
Yeah, that's right. We didn't even talk about that part. Yeah, she sets up the intervention with no mental health people, no addiction specialists, but it's too difficult for her, so she leaves, and then later kicks Rhea, tells Rhea she's moving out of the apartment, but that Rhea also has to move out.
Yeah. And so like if you compare that to people who are like maybe more truly trapped in a relationship with someone that has facing addiction issues or so on, where like financially they're stuck together, that sort of thing. It all comes across, like you said, wiping your tears with the money. Same so as when she's talking about addiction, she tries to tell this parallel story of her own love addiction and Rhea's opioid addiction. It's like, and she's talking about like us addicts, we're all the same. And it's like, no, you're not the same. You're not the same as all addicts.
No, you're not. Yeah, and no addiction specialist thinks that all addictions are the same. My addiction to coffee is not the same as someone else's addiction to heroin. and pretending they are is insulting to people with real illnesses.
Well, yeah, but according to Elizabeth, either everyone's innocent or no one's innocent at all. So, have a little bit of compassion in your heart there, Dr. Dashington.
Yeah, I should have got the same lesson from the Hitler book, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's innocent or everyone's guilty. So I guess Hitler's innocent. I mean, what do I know?
You know what's
right.
interesting, Julian? I just want to add
Yes.
that you might like, just to draw some parallels with the Manosphere again. The way she resolves her problems in Eat, Pray, Love is, going on this solo travel. In this, she resolves things by cutting off all kinds of people that are dependent on her and cutting off relationships entirely. So you, a big fan of MGTOW, I feel like she's doing a little bit of WGTOW here.
Absolutely. I mean, she's got, and for those of you who don't know, it's men going their own way. And I suppose you're suggesting she's a woman going her own way. She is a woman who lives by the beat of her own drum. You kind of got to respect that. I'm the only guy on the podcast who's not married, even though I love women. And so I am, I've always gone my own way. And so, yeah, I guess you gotta tip your hat. Game recognizes game, as Elizabeth likes to say. Well, look, I think we had a very difficult problem to solve at the beginning of this podcast. And how do four guys come together and celebrate women in literature in a way that is respectful and is fun and entertaining and humorous? And I think that we've done it. So I really want to thank all of the fantastic book club members who have joined me today on this voyage into all the way to the river. Chip Wilson, Dr. Bo Dashington, and the lovely Jane Lynch. Thank you for joining. I want to encourage everyone to visit our Piece of Shit Book Club on Reddit. We have a website, www.posbookclub.com. We're on YouTube at POS Book Club. If you're hearing the sound of my voice right now, you might be the only person who has listened to this podcast all the way to the end. No joke. It's quite possible. So tell a friend, like, subscribe, comment. Even if you listen and you fucking hate it, well, write it in the review. I don't care. What's going to happen to me? My life is fine. So fuck you. But until next time, thanks so much for listening. Enjoy, take care, and we'll see you on the next episode. Good night.
The greatest harm that I've ever done to other people was through me not knowing how to take care of myself.